And we are online, coming to you from my office and Mitch's bedroom. My name is Tom. You might know me as the Adventure Sage on any of the social media that you follow me on. This is my brother Mitch. I'll let you introduce yourself.
I'm Mitch. I'm Tom's brother. That's my biggest accolade. We both love Dungeons and Dragons. You can't really find me yet, but my handle on YouTube is Dual Wielder. That's basically it. I don't have any platforms yet, so we'll see if I decide to make videos or not. But for now, I'm just hanging with my brother.
Yeah, and that's kind of what this podcast is. If you were steered here by my content, then you probably would have saw the video where I explained this a little bit. But one of the main things I do is I take a walk every morning and I'll rant about something having to do with D&D. I live in Colorado, and now that it's November, I can't really do that anymore. It is like 20 degrees in the mornings, and I just can't walk around for an extended period of time. So
bro's got brain freeze.
I literally could not. Last week I literally could not feel my fingers, and I thought I got a cold just from being outside for too long in the morning and walking around and like inhaling that air. But anyways, Mitch and we are literal brothers. I can't remember if we already said that or not, but we talk about D&D for hours all week. We're both longtime DMs. We're both huge lifelong fantasy nerds. So we thought we might as well turn some of our stupid conversations into some content for you all. So this is the first of what we plan to be many podcasts. We're going to try and do this weekly. Can try and keep it around an hour or so. We're definitely going to be putting this up on YouTube in video form. We're working on getting a Spotify set up and Apple Podcasts or whatever they call it. So we want to put it on more platforms, but you have our seal of guarantee that we will be at least putting it on YouTube. We have some questions that were given to me by some lovely commenters on my TikTok account. So we'll go over a couple of those. And sorry, before we kick things off, we still don't have a name for this podcast. So you might have noticed we didn't say a name. We thought of like 3 different names. All of them are taken. So we're still workshopping that. By the time this episode comes out, we will know what we're calling ourselves.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
I don't know.
But yeah, let's go ahead and just kind of get started. I guess we can kind of talk about who we are on a more personal level a little bit, I guess. When it comes to D&D, we both kind of started playing together. Mitch, you have a little bit more of a history with D&D than I do, ironically enough.
Yeah, so we kind of started playing during quarantine. I played a couple times when I was younger with my father and just some of his friends. And then I tried to run a game when I was young, and I had no idea what I was doing. Did not go well. It was just, I was running a game for 2 of my friends, and I had no idea how to play. So it didn't work out. But during quarantine, that's when we actually started actually playing. We were bored as fuck. So
actually,
I just kind of...
is still a very loose term. We'll get into that.
Yeah, we were bored as fuck during quarantine, and I had all my dad's old books and stuff, and I was like, let's try and play because we're bored. Let's learn it. We love fantasy. I've always wanted to actually get into Dungeons and Dragons, and we had nothing to do, so it was like the perfect opportunity. We can get drunk and fight stuff.
Pretty much. It also kind of goes without saying, you might have found out at this point, this podcast is going to be pretty vulgar. There's just no way of getting around that. We both swear like truck drivers, so just brace yourselves for that. We can't change it.
If your kid's watching, turn it off! Turn that shit off!
Or keep it on. You can raise your children.
We're good influences.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mitch.
Yes. So we were playing. I was running the first game that we kind of played. It was horrible. Not a good game. But it was fun. It was fun. And it wasn't horrible because we all didn't know what we were doing. It wasn't like you join a game and the dungeon master has no idea, and then you're just kind of like, oh, okay, we're investing all this time, and this guy's just kind of shitting down our throat. It was more of, we all were amateurs. We all were trying to learn. Tom's build, he was playing a rogue, but he built him as a ranger. So
I wanted to be like an Aragorn figure, and I chose rogue, and I just didn't realize. I know everyone knows Aragorn's a ranger, and I even knew Aragorn was a ranger, but for some reason I thought rogue would work better, and it didn't.
We also had a player in that party who chose wizard. I didn't know how wizards worked, and I was running the game. So we just kind of made that shit up.
Yeah, she had no idea what she was doing.
Which is fine. Like it's on none of us. None of us knew what we were doing. But yeah, it was a rogue who was trying to be a ranger, a barbarian who probably carried for most of the time because they're pretty simple. I take half damage and I hit shit, and then a wizard. So that was like a 5 to 6 session little intro campaign. It was fun. It was very generic, like fantasy trope driven campaign, but
I mean, it gave us the bug, you know.
Yeah.
It gave us the itch for more. So
yeah. So we started doing that, and then I actually stumbled upon Critical Role because I was trying to consume D&D content to like learn how to play, and how to run the game, and that's when I kind of showed that to Tom. I was like, hey, I've listened to like 2 episodes of this. It's pretty good. Like these people like are actually role playing, and the fights are cool. So he was like, okay, I'll take a look. And then he was like 30 episodes ahead of me a week later. And then he kind of took over as the DM, started running a not very good, but an awesome campaign. It really got us into the hobby. I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, it was another campaign of just, we still didn't have a grasp on all of the rules. Some of the core mechanics were just completely ignored. There's a thing we did. Well, it's a thing Mitch and our other player did involving trolls and a bag of holding. We can get into that in just a minute.
Oh, we'll get into that. Oh, yeah.
It was very plot light. There was not a lot of plot in it. There was not a lot of cohesive storytelling. The essential basis of the campaign was just there was a little girl taken from the city, and the city was attacked by like hobgoblins, and now Mitch and my buddy Noah, they just had to run across the entire region and fight things. There was no like, foreshadowing of anything to happen. It was just like, all right, this week you run into gnolls, and then you run into a hill giant, and you're going through a cave, so now you're going to fight an Azer. Just no interconnectivity, just a lot of just pretty much like monster of the week type stuff.
And it was fucking awesome. It was great. I enjoyed that shit so much.
It was a blast. I mean, and it was also because it was not super heavy on like dramatic moments and character arcs and stuff. We'd pretty much just get hammered and do this.
Yeah. Fail hilariously, win hilariously. It was awesome.
Yeah, and it was a good way for us to pass the time because, like Mitch said, it was COVID, so we all lived together. So pretty much just every week we would do this. It was a fun campaign, but yeah, the just rules were completely ignored. Rules were completely missed. I'll let Mitch tell the bag troll story.
Yeah, so I knew trolls had a regeneration power where they'd like heal, and I don't know if this is how it actually works, but like I would assume it's like a worm or something. When you chop off its arm, it like grows another troll. At least that's what I think happens. I don't know, but one of the first like bosses in the game was like a big troll. We had to fight outside the outskirts of town. We thought the troll, I think, was stealing the people in the town, but it turned out to be the gnolls and the hobgoblins. So we went and fought this troll, and we beat the shit out of it. And my idea was, we have a bag of holding. Let's chop up the troll and put it in the bag of holding, and maybe like 10 more trolls will grow back.
So we did that.
That's what we did. We didn't realize that things die in the bag of holding. We didn't really understand how it works, so we're just like, okay, we'll just throw them in there.
Only hold 300 pounds, I'm pretty sure. And also, it's like a 3x3 cubic entrance, so a troll wouldn't even be able to get out of it if you put it in there.
Oh, but it did. It did.
I did not realize any of that, so I let them continue with this shenanigan.
Hey, that's a great DM move. Great DM move. Let me have a bag of trolls. It was great.
Yeah, it only broke everything.
All they know is bag. So what turns out that happened is he kind of forgot that he did that, and he kind of gave us the okay of like, sure, you got trolls growing in your bag. So we kind of saved them until we had also found invisibility potions at some point during the campaign. And when the final kind of arc came out of that section of the campaign, or I'd say the final like battle of that first arc, I had made a master plan with Noah, our friend, we're going to dump the trolls out and then drink the invisibility potions and hide while the trolls go fight all the monsters or whatever we were fighting. So Tom had put together this huge horde of monsters, like 15 goblins, like hobgoblins, ogres, all this stuff. And then the general hobgoblin, which was like my arch nemesis. And he was prepared for this huge battle we were going to fight. And then we were like, all right, we dump out the trolls and we drink our potions. Now you run the game for 2 hours, Tom.
That's basically what I did. I simulated the entire fight on my own as they just giggled, ate McDonald's, and watched from behind a rock. A better DM would have probably made them pilot the trolls themselves, but I was not a better DM at the time, and I didn't think about that. So they just made me play D&D alone for like an hour.
It was pretty fucking funny.
That's essentially the vibe of the first campaign that we ran. It was just utter chaos. The rules were being very lightly followed, not purposely, just because we didn't know what we were doing. But it was a good introduction. It was a good gateway into the hobby. And then, like kind of Mitch said, he introduced me to Critical Role. And I know that they're a very polarizing group because they're extremely roleplay heavy and yada, yada, yada. But it expanded my horizons on what the game could be. We're very combat-oriented DMs. We love combat. We love the strategy of it. We love Mitch makes all of his own terrain, and I'm an absolute fiend for miniatures. I collect as many as I can. But the only way that combat has weight, in my opinion, is if you care about the story involved and if you care about your characters. You can't really do that without roleplay. So there's kind of these two different sides of the ultra role players that don't even really know the mechanics of the game. They're just trying to tell a story. And then you got your power gamers that just want to dungeon crawl. They just essentially want to simulate a video game. We try to kind of be in a happy medium of that as DMs.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely about the story to get there. If you're just having fights in Monster of the Week, that's really fun. If you're not taking the game too seriously. Obviously, the world building Tom was doing wasn't as extensive as he does now. So at the time, it's like, oh yeah, we're just going to get drunk and fight shit. And it's like, oh, this is where the story's going now. All right. And honestly, I feel like that whole first campaign served as a great intro of getting us into the hobby because it showed us how fun it could be before we were advanced players. So I feel like the rules light kind of playing was a great start because you don't feel like you're messing up every 5 seconds. And you don't feel like you're taking people's time away from the game. It's not like you're joining a group mid-session or like joining a huge campaign for your first time you've never played before. I feel like that would be very daunting for a new player, which it is if you don't have a good table. But yeah, I feel like it was good for us to start that. And then Tom's second campaign is really when we kind of started cooking with gas.
Yeah, I mean, we were all still learning. So it's not like someone was there that was like a veteran player and was like, dude, what the fuck is going on? What are we doing here? We were all just very much on the same page of chaos and fun over mechanics and story. But then, yeah, we kind of evolved past that, and I started becoming what I would consider a pretty good DM of just really investing. I started creating my actual own homebrew world that now is taking a life of its own, and it's a whole thing. We run multiple campaigns in it. Mitch and I are literally running like a co-op DM Acquisitions Incorporated style campaign in it right now online. So that's pretty cool. I have this really big problem where I will read a module and get really pumped up about it, and I'll want to run it online. Now, for those of you who don't know, I mentioned it a couple times in my TikTok videos, but I run a weekly campaign in person at the table that is right behind me if you're watching on video. This is my game room. That is extremely homebrew. It is extremely story intensive. The people that are in it are here to show up, and they're here to play awesome, intense, thought out characters. The plot is very not complicated, but complex, and it's very roleplay heavy, but also very combat heavy. And I put a lot of time into that. So whenever I read a module, we know so many people online that are kind of all over the country that we like playing D&D with. So I'll always assemble a few of them and be like, guys, get ready, we're running Curse of Strahd. Get ready, we're running Rime of the Frost Maiden. Get ready, we're running Lost Mines of Phandelver. And then like 4 sessions in, I will realize I don't have time for this, and I just can't feasibly keep running without immediately burning myself out. And that would piss me off if I was a player. And I do this a lot. Some people like, it's pretty one-off for some of them, but like there's a couple like Mitch, he's always part of those campaigns. So every time we start a module, I end up not finishing it because I just don't have the time to do it. I got carried away and got really pumped.
You killed Marmalade. You killed Marmalade. My elephant man. You killed him.
But, well, I was telling Mitch about that because it's not, I'm not just like, I don't want to play this anymore. It's like, guys, I'm sorry. I just don't have as much time as I thought I did. I got carried away. So the answer to that was I was talking to Mitch and I was telling him how bad I felt. And basically you just said like, well, why don't we just run like a guild hall campaign? And we can both DM it.
Yeah, it'll basically just be like a one-shot, but the starting point is always the same. And all of our friends can just sign up whenever they can play.
Yeah. So we essentially just we made a giant Discord server. Because when you're running a module and stuff, you got to choose 4 or 5 people. And we have like probably anywhere from 15 to 20 people that we play D&D with online on whatever occasion. So we just threw them all into one giant Discord server and explained the premise of the campaign. Like, hey, you're in a guild. You can create your characters. This is going to essentially be a series of loosely connected one-shots. It's going to be in my homebrew world. Mitch has played a lot in my homebrew world, so he understands a lot of the lore and stuff. And we'll throw out jobs. We'll tell you when we're running the session. First 5 people to sign up are in it.
Yeah, so we'll like do literal job board postings we'll make in like Photoshop or Canva or whatever. And it'll have like a description of the mission, the reward, how many players that need to go there. And then we'll post it in a job board channel on Discord and people will be able to sign up. Usually we do 5, sometimes we'll do 4. That's kind of like the sweet spot. So it gives a good rotation of players. It's not always the same party. You get a lot of different dynamics throughout the weeks of playing, and it kind of keeps everything kind of spiced up. But also everyone's playing the same character every time. So it's not like a one-shot where you just bring in a bullshit character. They can still kind of progress some things with their character on an arc, or perhaps like it implies that they can keep good role-playing because they're not just switching to, okay, what meme build can I play this week? I got this guy who can knock people up in the air 50 feet, and that's all he does.
Yeah, it's cool. And like I said, like we have so many friends that probably don't know each other. So when we throw them all in, the party changes from a session basis. You have, our friends are meeting our other friends. There's people that live by Mitch, where he plays D&D with them more than I do. So then I get to run for Mitch's friends, and Mitch gets to run for my friends, and it's like this giant meld of a bunch of D&D players and a bunch of people that we mesh with, and then kind of creates this. Almost like this little community.
Yeah, little D&D ecosystem.
Yeah.
And we're at the top of the food chain.
The top dogs. No, it's really cool. It's really cool. It's not like something we created. I'm pretty sure, like, we call it Acquisitions Incorporated, and I know there is an Acquisitions Incorporated official book for D&D. Ironically enough, I don't own it, but that way of running things is really awesome when you don't want to have to commit to like a super intense campaign. And that's kind of how I view online. Like when I'm in person, I very much am in it to win it. And I'm not saying like this is all serious and no fun's allowed, but like I'm trying really hard in my in-person campaign. I'm putting hours and hours into it every week to make sure the story is right, to make sure the characters are all getting, backstory elements in the campaign and stuff like that. But when we're just playing online, it's like, hey, this is the adventure this month. First 5 people to sign up get to play.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean we don't tell a good story on our adventure. It's just usually like a one-shot. It's very compact, concise. There's a little bit of plot going on. Maybe like something surprises the players, but like it saves so much time, and it's such a struggle to run so many games at the same time. I think at one point Tom was running like 4 games at the same time during like he'd run like 4 games a month. It was crazy. I don't know how you do that. So he was just burnt out, and that's why we switched it.
It burned me out.
Yeah, so I mean, it helps both of us be able to run more games for doing less work.
Kind of harping back to what we said about like you have your power gamers and then you have your super intense role players. Most people fall somewhere in between that, but like everyone plays the game a little differently. So when it's casual like this and it's like, hey, this is a little one shot, we have little symbols that we throw on our job postings that kind of like give insight into what kind of adventure this is going to be. Like Is this going to be a stealth adventure? Is this going to be like a bounty hunting adventure? Is it going to be an RP heavy adventure where you have to infiltrate a ball or something like that? We have these little icons that we throw at the bottom of our job postings, but it kind of gives people a way to not have to commit to something extremely long term. Like when I was bringing together my campaign now, the campaign that I was running for 2 years, I literally took all of those people out because I had just moved to Colorado. There was only one person I knew from my campaign that I knew how he played D&D, and I wanted him in my group because we were very similar in the way we play. But all those D&D horror stories you hear of like problem players and people having to leave tables and all this stuff, that can all be eliminated by just making sure you mesh with your players beforehand. The writing's on the walls. You can tell if you're going to mesh or not. And if you don't, then it's an unfortunate circumstance. But before I started my campaign, I literally took every single one of my players out, like for coffee or for a beer or for breakfast or something. And we talked about D&D, we talked about our influences, we made sure we knew what we wanted out of the game. I told them what game I'm looking to run. They said, how they like to play. And then even past that, we just wanted to make sure we vibed socially as well. Like there can be people that you just don't mesh with for whatever reason, regardless of if you play the same type of D&D. So doing that really helped me cement my group.
Yeah, bro's doing the Dungeons and Dragons job interview.
It's not like it's like an interview, but it's not like tryouts, right? It's not like, are you good enough to be in my campaign? It's basically just, it's a vibe check for both of us, because they could easily just say like, actually, you know what? I don't think I really vibe with you. We're not going to join. It's for both of our sakes. It's not for me being like, let's see if you're qualified. It's let's see if we are qualified to play D&D together.
Yeah, you said your backstory was how many? 30 pages? All right. Okay. Oh, your character's from a different realm. Oh, that's why he has a laser sword in my low fantasy. Okay. All right, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
My gritty dark fantasy adventure.
Yeah, my gritty dark fantasy. You want to play a plasmoid? Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Okay. Yep.
You want to be a piece of garlic bread being held up by a mage hand?
All right.
Yeah, that's perfect for my Game of Thrones style campaign.
Exactly, yeah. My grimdark noir campaign? Yeah. Yeah, you can place that. Garlic bread man.
Yeah, it's like that's really important. And sometimes you're going to have to like reset expectations or just set expectations with your players about how you want to run, how people want, like how everyone needs to play.
Yeah, and some tables just won't fit you. Like if you're like a grindy, like first, second, third edition, I want a dungeon crawl, I want to kill shit, I just want to go in a dungeon, get loot, fuck shit up. RP tables are not going to be for you. Like just check yourself out, because like if you're really that desperate to play that you'll sacrifice your play style to go play at another table, it's like putting the square piece into the triangle hole and just bashing it on it. It's not going to work. You got to find a table that fits you. Like, not everything can fit in the square hole. But yeah, so you have to find the right people, and playing, the easiest way to do that is to play with your friends. Because usually you all kind of mesh along together well. You don't always have the same kind of play styles or goals, but it just kind of makes that introduction into a new campaign easier when you're all comfortable.
That's definitely true. And like if you ever have to reset expectations, it's easier to do that with your buddies than it is with like strangers, because that can be taken the wrong way, right?
Yeah. I mean, like if you say there's a problem you're having with the game, like with my players, there was a certain point in the campaign where it was really hard to engage them, and like they were with it. They were playing it like a video game where they were just generic NPC guy, and they were just playing Monster of the Week with my stuff. And to really get them to engage, I kind of had a re-session 0. It was like, hey guys, I put a lot of work into this. Let's try and flesh out our characters a little. I mean, you've talked to 30 different NPCs, and you guys just kind of act the same with all of them. If you don't want to play a super roleplay heavy or like lore heavy campaign, that's fine. You just got to tell me, because then I'll run a Monster of the Week type campaign and put way less work into it. So it's really about finding a table that fits for you. It's really about running the game for people who want to play what you want to play.
How do we even start this topic? What were we even talking about?
We're just fucking yapping. We're just yapping. There's no point to any of this. Call it Yapaholics. That's the podcast name.
Yapaholics. But yeah, it's so to kind of reiterate what we were saying, even though I don't even know how this conversation started. Vetting your players is extremely important. There's so much nuance to it, but it's not worth your time playing with a table that you don't mesh with. There was a time in Florida where I wanted to join another D&D campaign. I lived in Florida for a year and wanted to join a D&D campaign. I saw this dude. He marketed a campaign on Facebook. I said, "Hey, can I join? You live 15 minutes away from me." And then I went over there. I made like this really nice backstory for my character. It wasn't, I wasn't being a problem player that made the 10-page long backstory. It was like a clear, concise 1 page. Like, here's my guy. Here's his baggage. Here's his backstory. I got there to the first session. I could tell right away. DM didn't even read it. And pretty quickly after like 1 session, I realized, oh, this is just a power gaming campaign. There's
no role play, no nothing. It was just no like, we're here to fight.
He didn't even want to role play. Like, he wouldn't role play. I'd try and go talk to people and he'd be like, "Okay, he says this. All right, well, I guess I'll leave then." There was just nothing. There was no substance beyond when is the next fight and where. Point us in the direction and we're going to go kill things. I lasted like 3 sessions in that campaign. And it was like, I didn't make a huss or a fuss. I just said, like, "Guys, I'm sorry. This isn't what I'm here for, and I don't want to waste my time and I don't want to waste your time."
Yeah, there's no point. It's like you're almost like because people want to play so bad, they'll sit in a bad experience and then just deal with it. If it's not for you, it's not for you. And you're also doing a service to the other players at the table. If you want to play a different game than them and you join, they're all going to also be at contention with you too. So just being comfortable with everybody and actually finding a game that matches your playstyle is super important.
Hey, I think it's time for the wisdom check.
Wisdom check.
So, wisdom check is a little weekly segment we do. I think I mentioned this at the beginning, but I put out a little TikTok post when we decided we were going to be doing this, saying like, "Hey, comment any questions you have, any topics you want us to discuss, any advice you want us to give, D&D related, of course, and we'll choose a couple and talk about them on our podcast." So I think we got like maybe 6 or 7 different questions that were submitted. Just realistically, we can't go over all of them. I'm sorry. I wish we could. They were all very good questions, but we'll be here forever. On the way that we go on tangents, we will literally be here forever. So I chose a couple good ones that I felt pertained to kind of what we were, what we were going through in our own lives of D&D. So first one is by Rafi Ayala. They say, "Do you advise for helping players become more engaged in their RPing? I love my players, but I worry they'll stick to joking around and fall short of developing their characters." This is kind of a 2-parter, I think.
Yeah.
So to answer the first part of your question, I would say, yes, I do advise for players being more engaged in their RPing.
For sure.
Yeah. I think it's kind of a nuanced thing of trying to get your players engaged, and we honestly kind of just talked about this a little bit, but like, if your players aren't engaged in your story, then there's a lot of ways that you can kind of make that happen. You need to lead by example, in my opinion. Like,
and emotional abuse with their backstory. Use their backstory like a hammer and bash it over their head.
Yeah, but like, you need to lead by example. One, take every little ounce of the backstory they wrote and make it part of the campaign. Do that to the best of your ability. Having a nice spread of NPCs kind of helps them engage and bite into the world. But also, if you're worried about them like joking around and stuff, put them in dire situations, and don't buy into their jokes. Whether or not they're joking out of table or if they're joking with their characters, put them in situations that won't really fit them joking around.
Oh yeah, yeah. Just throw a dragon at them, throw something at them. Make them realize like, oh, there's actual stakes to this game. We can't just goof around the whole time.
Yeah, and also give them consequences to their actions.
Yeah.
Literally, like, if they are doing stupid stuff, give them consequences into their actions.
Now, again, you got to take that with a grain of salt, because sometimes characters doing dumb things is fun. Like you can do some stupid shit and it'll be a memorable moment. But like if it's all the time and they're just clowning on every NPC and every fight they're just destroying or they're just basically laughing at, then you might have to turn up the heat on them, or you have to kind of find a different way to get them involved. Like again, have a session 0 and kind of emphasize to your players like, hey guys, I put a lot of work into this. Like, can we bring out some of your characters so they can kind of flesh out into the plot with the rest of my stuff? It'll make it a more deep experience for everybody. But yeah, definitely some ways to get them in is NPCs, directly involving plot hooks with their backstory, killing NPCs from their backstory. That's a good one. Use it like a hammer.
And well, on the topic of NPCs too, you can use NPCs to make them think about their backstory. Like you can create an NPC and throw them into the story that purposely kind of pries into who they are. You can kind of from almost a meta perspective throw a DM insert character in there to kind of start poking and prodding at the parts that you want your players to explore about themselves. Mm-hmm. Like it was a major theme in the beginning of my long form campaign, but all of my players, they created characters that in their backstories they are running from something. Everyone was running, and that became kind of a narrative theme in the campaign, to where if they were ever in a dire situation, conveniently enough, they would literally just run. And I don't know if they were doing this purposely because of their backstories, but it became kind of this common occurrence of, if they were in a sticky situation, rather than just trying to kill their adversary, which is not always the right answer, but they would genuinely just run. They'd run and try and find a way out of there. So it started actually kind of becoming a bit of an issue for me as a DM, because I would give them these enemies, and instead of overcoming the enemies, they would get out of the situation. So they didn't lose, but they didn't win. And it was starting to kind of halt the story. I was like, guys, you need to start tying up these loose ends instead of just running away from everybody. So I put a character as a seafaring campaign. So I put a character on their ship that they had, who would constantly ask them what their backstories are. And then also he had a very similar backstory. He was running from something. And I remember I had this giant like monologue one night with him where he was like, I'm tired of running. I can't live like this anymore. Blah, blah, blah. And he was basically projecting what he wants to do over what I thought the party should do. And of course, I'm not going to force my players to do anything. You shouldn't have to force your players to do something, but throwing in little helping moments like that, like literally the guy who plays the bard, he's amazing at roleplay. He was just telling me the other day, when Jabari gave that speech about not running, that made me realize something in Merritt, and that made Merritt's character change. Because I gave a speech, and in game his character was like, holy shit, you're right. But from a meta perspective, from above the table, he was like, we need to stop running. And I conveyed the message that I was trying to convey, and he realized that also the party should stop running too. So it was like one of those, that's a perfect example. Obviously it's not always just going to go easily like that, but understanding that you can kind of nudge your characters in the right direction. If they are not investing enough in your world, if they're not investing enough in your characters, you can kind of help them get there. It's their job as players also to understand the story you're trying to tell. Like if they should be able to see the plot hook you're dangling in front of their face. And if they choose to ignore that, then that's kind of on them.
Yeah, and obviously there's levels to this, but like you also have to count on them being a good player. Like if you're a player and you say, I don't want to do anything with the plot or any of the threads that have been presented with us, I want to go this way and do this thing. It's going to be like, okay, you're going to be out of this campaign and we'll continue with the rest of the party. It's kind of like, let's get involved, follow the threads. You don't have to be, it's not a railroad to go down quest lines. There's multiple options. And even if they don't go for the option right in front of them, as long as they go somewhere else that's still in the direction of progressing in the campaign, then it's okay.
And like sometimes the players will tell you where they want to go. Maybe not directly, but like if they keep going, if they keep wanting to go somewhere, they keep asking about a certain place, that's kind of on you as the DM too to realize like, okay, they keep asking about the ruins up there. I didn't have anything planned, but it seems that that's where they want to go. So maybe I should write something for over there that will eventually bring them there. It's just kind of like, it's this, you're all in this together. It's not a DM versus players. You're not the storyteller. You're all telling the story. You as the DM just make the world, and you as the player have a responsibility to explore it responsibly.
And dive in. You have to dive into the deep end.
Yeah. And try and, chew up every piece of scenery the DM gives. And as a DM, it's your job to give scenery that's chewable. That, you want to make your world interesting, and you want to make it interactive and make it fun for the players to actually be in there. Give in-depth descriptions, create a bunch of colorful NPCs that are unique in their own ways, and understand that sometimes the players will straight up tell you with their characters no. And while sometimes, like we just said, that can be really annoying, it can also be helpful. Like there was a part in my previous campaign that I just ran. I just finished my long-term campaign, so there was a part in it where they had just escaped a citadel in the Feywild, and they had to go find a portal deep into the Fey realm. Like it was like a 4-day journey deep in the woodlands. It was going to be this kind of like travel arc, but they were laying low, just completely beaten and battered at a tavern because the citadel, the main citadel of this place was after them. They were basically wanted by the city. They barely escaped the citadel. This was an instance where they were actually needed to escape. They could not fight their way out of it, but they barely did, and they were hiding out. I had created this cool little halfling guy. He was like just this kind of like bookworm, like loser. His wife left him because he was like all he did was sit inside and read books, and he didn't go on any adventures, and he would never go outside. He was like scared of everything. I was like, this is going to be a cool little guy to tag along. He'll be a cute little NPC that the party will probably fall in love with just because he's so pathetic, but he's going to try and have this arc where he like learns to be more brave and blah, blah, blah. And they were walking out of the tavern, and I was going to have my big introduction scene where he walked up and he's like, hello, I see you're adventurers, blah, blah, blah. I had him walk up to him. They were so over this situation in game. They were having a blast outside, I hope at least, but their characters were so over this situation. Like they were wanted by the law. They had to avoid everyone. They almost died in the previous session. He walked up to them and was like, hello, adventurers. And the bard literally looked at him and said, piss off. And then they just kept walking. And I was like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
And
like
that's an instance where even though they're saying like no, and you're like trying to bring out their role play with their NPC, that is them role playing, because in character they're just so tired and beaten. They're like, we got to get the fuck out of here. Fuck this little guy. Who cares? We got to go.
Yeah. So like in the session, I was like, all right, there goes that guy. But looking back on it was absolutely hilarious, and they were being genuine. They weren't like trying to avoid what I was doing. They were just like, look, we don't want any more travelers. We don't need baggage. We need to get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
So that's a good instance of like the players saying, I went in and said, hey, how about this? And they said, nope, moving on.
Yeah.
They still tackled the plot I had planned for them. They were just like, we don't have room for this right now.
I hope that giant mumble of monologues from us answered your question.
Dude, I literally even forgot we were doing the wisdom check.
I hope that answered your shit. If it didn't,
answers your question.
Yeah, if it didn't answer your question, I guess sucks. Sucks.
But yes, we do advise for trying to pull your players in. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. If it gets bad enough, like if you're just trying to pull them in, they continue to not have a recession 0 with them. If they're good players, they'll understand. You can all reach a common ground. But there are a lot of ways to do that in game, whether it's through NPCs or plot hooks or involving their backstory. A lot of good ways to do that.
Hammer.
So thanks for listening to our 30-minute answer.
Gotta hammer him on the head. Your mom, who you lost in childhood, she's dead. Vampires killed her. There you go. That guy's gonna be very involved in the plot.
we got another question actually. We got to get through here. This one,
Shit.
this one by Biggie Vodka Boy.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah.
He said,
Biggie, me too. Me too, Biggie.
They said, how do you tackle class changes mid-campaign? I chose this one specifically because Mitch and I literally just went through this in a campaign that we are in together online.
And another player in that campaign changed their class directly in that same session.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways you can handle a class change mid-campaign. I think first we need to kind of think about it. Mitch, I'll let you speak out.
There's two different ways that you can kind of like think about this. It's either like a full character change, because sometimes like certain races and certain things you've chosen over your career as a character might not mesh with the new class. So you can either like change your whole character to change your class, or there's just a direct class change. And what me and Tom did for our the campaign we were playing in is our characters, they were a little weaker. We weren't really vibing with them too much in that campaign. It was much more of like we're an adventuring party exploring the depths of the fucking plane of fire, and we got to fight our way out. And our characters were much more like roleplay heavy, more tactical. It wasn't really working out. So we kind of just made new characters, and it was kind of at a good breaking point in the campaign because our DM, who actually handled this pretty well, we had a TPK basically, and we all basically got taken prisoner. So in the campaign, there's almost like a mind control thing going on in the plot, which worked really well with what we were doing. Basically, he had our characters get mind controlled and almost turn evil, and we just came with new guys. We both came with dwarf barbarians because our party was lacking some muscle. So we're like, let's just go in as dwarf brothers. It'll be crazy fun. And the DM kind of worked it in with his game where he just turned them into, okay, I was going to plan on having bad guys who were mind controlled anyways. We're doing it to your characters now.
This happened probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. We were listening to a lot of Windrose. New Windrose album came out, and we're both gym heads. We both like going to the gym as much as we can. And when you're listening to dwarf metal on a bench, that ignites something in you. And I'm not usually a barbarian type of guy. I love spycasters. I love more tactical classes, but I'm just really vibing with the dwarf who goes and hits things.
The furnace of the hearth in my heart ignites when I listen to that shit at the gym. I am a true dwarf. All right. I am a dwarf.
I think we originally were just going to keep our characters, but then one of us said like, hey man, you listening to Windrose? Yeah. We got to be dwarfs. We got to come back as dwarf barbarians. Two dwarf barbarian brothers.
The new album's great. Go listen to it wherever you listen to music. But yeah, so that's kind of how we handled that. We were just prisoners who were also in the prison with our friends, the other party members. So it kind of worked out easy that way. Again, there's certain things for class changes where you're not going to have something that clean cut. So usually you have to theme it with like some sort of downtime of like retraining. Maybe you have to go on a journey to like unlock some inert power. It's really hard to just kind of abruptly do it unless there's a huge plot point going on. So like us having a TPK and getting captured and thrown into the mind control dungeon really helped because, okay, we all just got thrown in a dungeon and they're trying to kill our party members anyways, and we're defenseless. So it works out.
You can always as well, like it happened to work out that way for us, but as a DM, if you know that people want to change their characters or change their classes, or if you just need to kind of like reset the momentum, implement a big time jump. Like whether it's a few months or a year or a few years, if you're at a good set point where you can say like, all right, guys, there's going to be a time jump. What are your characters going to do in the next year? Then that's also a good way for someone to be like, all right, well, instead of being a ranger, I want to switch to fighter, or it's much more plausible to change classes in a long period of time than just like, oh, I'm a paladin now. It's just kind of like, so you're going to have to suspend your disbelief a little bit if you're changing classes. But it's part of the meta.
Obviously, if you want like a good story-paced game with RP and stuff, doesn't always make a lot of sense, but like sometimes it's still a game. You're just not vibing with your class. People should understand if you want to change it, and it doesn't really make a ton of sense. Like, yeah. I guess the easiest ones to explain are probably like the barbarian, or not the barbarian, the paladin and the cleric, because it's kind of like, oh, I've found divinity. Like, maybe have your characters start doing prayers at night, and some deity starts speaking with them, and it changes all of their powers, you know? So that would work. Any sort of like martial class, like fighter or monk, or like a barbarian, especially with like barbarian, you could go on like an ancestral journey, and then you get granted the power of the rage or whatever. Or like the fighter or monk, you like run into a master of that class, and they just train you. It's pretty easy to work it into the plot. You just kind of have to suspend your disbelief. Like, if you have a person who's playing like a fighter or something, and they say, well, I really kind of want to play a sorcerer now, you might just have to be like, you find some power grows within you from your lineage, which is what a sorcerer does, and it is now just becoming active, and make it a little bit plot oriented. But like, obviously the person's not going to have any of their fighter abilities anymore, so it doesn't really make much sense, but you just kind of got to ignore that part.
Just roll with it.
Yeah, and if your players at the table are like, well, that doesn't make any sense, yeah, you can go fuck yourself, buddy. I'm trying to have fun. I'm trying to have fun here.
Yeah.
Like who cares? Who cares if I'm playing a sorcerer now? I'm trying to have fun. We're all trying to have fun.
Yeah. It says it. I'm pretty sure it says this in the new player's handbook, but like, you're signing a social contract with your friends. If anyone's gonna be you know, well, that wouldn't make sense. Get the fuck out of my table.
Yeah, dude, I'm shooting spells out of my fucking ass. It doesn't make any sense. I'm riding on a dragon while I'm getting attacked by 8 griffins. It doesn't make sense. I got 30 people with me because we got 10 fucking clone duplicates because we're all 19th level, and we're shooting at a lich named Vecna, and his hand's missing, and he's got a book in his chest. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It doesn't make sense. Just suspend your disbelief. Who cares?
Yeah.
So does that answer your question? I don't fucking know.
Well, no, there's one more. So there's one more way. That obviously, that's a whole answer in itself. It's just like, you just do it. You suspend your disbelief. Some ways are easier than others. Some ways are harder than others. But at the end of the day, you're all playing a game and trying to have fun. So if you want to change your class, if that's going to make it have fun, then just fucking do it. And if your DM doesn't let you, that sucks. And you should find a new DM, because this is like it. Sorry, I got to walk that back for just a second. There's a difference between a DM just saying no. There's also, you know, if you're like right in the middle of a campaign arc, it's completely within the bounds of the DM to be like, dude, look, I planned on you being a cleric for the next 6 sessions. Can we do this after at a nice breaking point? Like, there's a give and take, right? But anyways, sorry, wanted to say that. But there was in that situation with our campaign where we just had this happen. Something happened that I've never seen before, and it was an absolutely amazing idea.
Oh,
I don't know if the player did this. I don't know if our DM did this. Mitch, I'll let you.
It was so cool. So cool. So here we are. 2 naked dwarves in the bottom of the fucking dungeon. The mind-controlled dungeon. We're brand new. The party just met us. We're breaking out of prison. We're running around. All of us just in our skivvies. The guards ran away for some reason. We bust down a door. And we found a machine. This was like a
steampunk machine.
Yeah, like a steampunk, like almost like a intro machine. What's that called when it's like a test?
I'm blanking on the word too.
I can't think of it.
Experimental.
Yeah, well, it was like a testing machine that they were trying to. It was a prototype, yeah, because they were trying to make a big machine that like will mind control people and basically have mindless army. And so when we got there, we're like, oh, we're investigating this machine, and one of our players who's a warforged, actually, this is one of the cooler things I've ever seen, like a DM do a class change, is he actually was playing a ranger, wasn't vibing with it, and when we went to the machine, he found another like almost like a CD floppy disk ROM. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It's a fantasy world. Who cares? My previous character was wielding a gun. So who cares? He pulls the CD-ROM, pulls the one out of his head, and swaps them. And he downloaded the file, and he's like a new class. He's a Warforged. He changed from a ranger. Now he's an artificer. It was super cool.
Well, like, it doesn't make sense, but it does make sense. Like, was it an actual floppy disk? Probably not. But that's kind of how it was described. But like, he essentially downloaded a different class into his brain and took his chip out And the DM said, all right, Faust, you can keep the Ranger chip. So I don't know. We haven't explored this yet, but I don't know if they're working on some sort of mechanic where like he can swap between classes at a certain point or like what. But that's really cool. And that sort of mechanic also, like I said, we haven't really explored it yet, but you need a player. If you're going to do something like that, you need a player that knows what he's doing. And the guy who's playing it is extremely into the rules. He's a really good player. He understands like the balance of like, not trying to be the main character and all that stuff. He is a player that we all trust. And we all trust our entire party at this point, but like you need someone who is capable of that task because that can easily get out of hand.
Yeah, I mean, if just in that like general case where he can like hypothetically, we're not sure what it's fleshed out yet because we're not personally running the game. If he could just like swap between classes, he's like a wizard on crack. It's like what spells am I preparing today? No, it's what class am I preparing today? Like we're going into a tomb with zombies. We need the fucking paladin chip to put in your fucking dome so you can kill them all.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. It's like Big Hero 6. Have you seen Big Hero 6? The big robot?
No.
He just downloads the file and then he's a fucking master of Kung Fu or whatever. It's the same thing. I thought it was super cool. It was. I didn't see that coming at all when he changed his class. I didn't even know he was changing his class until he did it.
I didn't either. So yeah, that was really cool. And now he has like a ranger chip, even though he still has his ranger chip, even though he's got his artificer chip in. So if we find more chips, that'll be super cool.
That'll be cool.
It's such a cool concept. It's something I never even would have thought of.
Yeah, just have to be creative with your player and the DM to flesh out a cool way to get your class change. Like, does that make sense? Not really. It doesn't make sense. There's just a random CD drive in this giant steampunk machine prototype thing. Sure. Fuck it. Who cares? We were all like, "Oh, that's cool." No one was like, "That doesn't make sense. This is fantasy world." No, it's cool. Let him change his class. Hopefully that answers your question a second time now.
We're gonna have to do like we just go on tangents. We like yapping. This is basically what we do all week. We do this for like 7 hours every week. Is just talk about D&D.
Yeah, we just call each other after work and yap.
Pretty much.
Call me Mr. Yappington. I can't stop. Let's do one more little segment here.
Okay.
Favorite monster. You start.
I don't really have a reason for this, but I really like the Remoraz. Remoraz. It's a weird way. It's got a weird spelling, but it's like this giant snow centipede, and it breathes fire, but it's got this like cold exterior. It's just like a really cool monster. I have a mini for it somewhere. One sec. You can tell me yours while I go get my mini.
Okay. Yeah, go get that mini.
Wait. I already found him.
Oh, sweet.
So, it looks like this. If you can see that for all of you who are watching. It's a big mini. This is an adult one. I also have a baby one. So, they're really cool. They're really, really cool creatures. They like have like fire breath, and if you hit them, you take fire damage. But they're in the Arctic, so it's like kind of this weird like when a player fights it for the first time, they don't expect it. So it's a really cool like kind of switch up, and they're just really cool.
I like the Remoraz. I remember when we fought him for the first time. We were fighting the baby, and we were like, "Oh fuck, this guy's hard." And then the fucking other giant one jumps out of the ice and starts mauling me in the face, and I'm like, "What the hell?"
Yeah,
that was fun. That was fun when you whipped those guys out in the campaign.
I've done it twice now. I did it for your campaign. So I've run before I let you go, or before I let you tell me yours, Mitch. I've run 2 like super long form campaigns. Both have went basically to 20. One was a year long. I raided in Florida. Mitch was part of that one. And then one I just finished up that lasted 2 years, and I'm running it here, obviously. But in both of those campaigns, I've included a Ramirez fight because it's such a fun fight for people that don't already know what it is.
That's definitely a cool choice. Also, like, that choice doesn't really come up a lot. That's like more of a rare monster. Like, you have to really be in that specific environment. So like as a player, when you like see something like that, it's like, oh, I've never fought one of these before. It's like one of those rare like niche monsters. So yeah, those are definitely cool. My answer is probably a little generic. I love the dragons. The dragons are cool. The only problem I have is like I do have to make like edits to them. Like I feel like the regular dragon in D&D, it's not all it's hyped up to be. Like their breath weapon's great, but then when they don't have it, and if they can't roll it again, it's like it's just a struggle. They're just like they're just whiffing attacks or like yeah, my melee fighter, he doesn't care if you swipe at him with claws for 3 turns. Like he's taking 15 damage. All right, he's gonna stone's endurance and take half that. Like it doesn't really affect him too much.
Yeah, and I also think it's well, because people are immediately going to be like, well, just have the dragon stay hit flying and just carpet bomb them, dude. That's boring.
That's boring, but I do that. You do that, and if you have a party of 2 wizards and a ranger, that dragon's going to be having not a happy time, even if it's in the air.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, if that's like the dragon's main tactic, you got to bring it down to the battlefield, right? Like, it's just, I don't know.
See, I would say it depends on the dragon. So, like, some dragons are dumber than others. Younger dragons might just try and brute force you on the ground, but like the big dragons, they know that fighter on the ground is going to action surge and hit him with 8 attacks. They know that guy's going to do that. They're going to fucking avoid him, or they're going to try and pick him up and throw him off the cliff. Like having your dragons like pick up the players and toss them around, or you pick them up in the air, bite, claw, and then just drop them. It's like a whole extra attack. So I think the versatility of dragons is really great. That's why I really like them. Also, just adding to dragons, I feel like their presence, because they're so legendary, just like if you put a dragon on the table, your player's immediately like, oh shit. Like they're immediately like, it turns on their gamer mode. Like, okay guys, this is serious. Like we're in a bad situation. Yeah, it's time to fucking lock in. But no, I'm with you. Yeah, giving dragons spells, cool AoE effects for their dungeon or lair, cool names, cool cinematic voices. Like I love the dragon. It's great.
The dragon lore is definitely like you can't just have like a dragon that just shows up. Like dragons are ancient creatures and they are charismatic and they are smart. And like even the dumbest dragon is still smarter than any, hobgoblin or troll or any, that is a whole element of dragons as villains is even if your party, if all your party needs to do is get them on the ground and they can beat the shit out of them, the menacingness comes from their presence too.
They literally have frightful presence. That's one of their main abilities. Because the reason they have that ability is because they are so big and scary that it's just like, okay, everybody make a wisdom saving throw. This guy's scary. It's great. They're so legendary and just so fearful. They've like blown up whole cities that like every character just knows like, oh shit, that's a problem. Now, until you're higher levels, dragons are a really big threat. But I feel like the scaling in the game is a little hard. Like once players reach like 15, even like 13, like they can handle dragons pretty easily. And with all the features in the game, like Sentinel and stuff, and like reducing dragons' movement speeds, or like force movement, or just having like, I have a fighter he's a Goliath Rune Knight fighter, and he's got expertise in athletics, so he grows to a huge size, and then he just grapples a dragon, and it's stuck down there, and then it just gets thrashed. So it's really about how you play them and giving it ways to get out. I always give my dragons like some sort of teleport or like some sort of extra damage spell casting so it can still be a threat when it doesn't have its breath weapon.
I had 2 big bads of the campaign that I just ran. One was an ancient bronze dragon. The other one was like this ancient primordial leviathan. Both of their main abilities, the bronze dragon has its breath, it has its lightning breath, and then the Leviathan had like this rhyme breath that would just like blast people 60 feet back. They'd take a fuck ton of force damage. The Ancient Dragon gets its breath weapon back on a 5 or 6 on a d6. That's 1/3 chance. It rolls it every round. If your fight lasts for 5 rounds, more than likely it'll be able to use it at least twice. The entire fight, my dragon didn't get his breath weapon back. And, some people might say, oh, well, just lie. Don't fudge your rolls. It's like that whole, it's like that scene in The Matrix where he's like, are you telling me that I can fudge my rolls? Morpheus is like, no, I'm telling you when you're ready, you won't have to. It's like, don't. I get it. Sometimes that's a whole other conversation. We don't need to get into that.
Yeah,
but anyway,
we don't need to.
I like to roll the breath weapon in front of my players because it's just fun. It builds hype. When you're rolling dice in front of your players, I'll like get up, I'll go over the screen, I'll be like, all right guys, I want a 5 or 6, and they're all screaming, one, and I roll it every time. It's like a 1, 2, or 3. So on our final boss, the bronze dragon he was one of the big bad guys, but he wasn't the final big bad guy. The final boss was the Leviathan. I was like, you know what? I had really bad luck last time. It was a homebrew creature, so I was like, his breath is coming back on a 4, 5, or 6. This battle lasted like 7 rounds. He did not get his breath back once. It was a 50% chance.
Yeah.
You cannot count on the breath weapon to do your dirty work for you.
Yeah, and I mean, I had a huge battle where in my current campaign, one of the BBEGs is Black Dragon. It's an ancient Black Dragon. And he assaulted the city they were defending. They're a little underleveled for the fight, but he wasn't necessarily primarily focusing on the party. They were just helping all of the guard defend the city. Because it was under assault from this dragon and this orc army. It's kind of enlisted into its ranks. And I actually got my dragon's breath weapon back 3 times in an 8-round fight. So it's kind of like you never know what you're going to get. And obviously that made my dragon much more threatening, but even though he was an ancient dragon and he wasn't primarily focusing on the party, they still were able to deal a lot of damage to him. Like, they messed him up. He was close to death, like pretty close, and he barely escaped. Luckily, he achieved his mission and then ran away, so he kind of made off like a bandit. But the problem I have with them is they're so swingy. It's just the breath weapon that makes them such an imposing force, which it is. Like, breath weapon, if you fail, it's like 70 damage to your character.
I mean,
like,
if you get your breath weapon back every round, you're killing your party.
Yeah.
So there's no other way around it.
So it's good to supplement your dragons with other abilities, is all I'm saying. But yeah, those are my favorite creature. The presence, the lore, like going into a dragon's lair, it's iconic. And the fact that they can shapeshift and like turn into people, and it's always a huge surprise when they're revealed. Like, it's great. Those are my favorite.
Yeah. That's a good one. The Reminisce is my first one I could think of off the top of my head, but I think I'll maybe do a little more brainstorming. That's a cool subject to tackle. We can talk about monsters. We run a lot of monsters. But yeah, we're a little bit past time here. I don't want to go too much over. My voice is actually starting to hurt from talking. I'm so fragile. But yeah, so we'll wrap it up here. Like I said, we're going to try and put this out. We'll for sure put it out on YouTube video format like this. And then we're going to try and get it on, like, streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple, stuff like that, iTunes or whatever they call it. But you can find me. My name's Tom, but my handle is The Adventure Sage. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Instagram. Yeah, I do a whole lot of stuff all over there as well. So follow me on socials. Mitch will be putting his stuff together. So
yeah, we'll see. We'll see if I make videos or not. I'm not sure. I'm still working on that. But my handle's The Dual Wielder. I only have a YouTube right now. Obviously, Tom's been doing this for longer than me, and I kind of just am like, Tom, he's like, let's just make a podcast. I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do that. I don't care. That'll be fun. Yeah.
With that being said, we'll be back next week. We're gonna try and do this on a weekly basis. Hope you like it. If you want us to talk about anything, you can comment. Probably if you're watching YouTube, comment in the comments of this video stuff you want us to tackle on our next time, or you can just DM me or whatever. I don't care, man. Just make sure I see it. If you're gonna do it, just make sure I see it.
Yeah.
Check my DMs, I check my comments.
Next time we're gonna be drinking. I'm gonna be drinking.
Yeah, we're doing it midday right now, but next time we'll probably do it a little bit later. Might have a beer or two in us.
Come on, A proper dwarf's gotta have a fucking drink.
It's dwarf season, baby.
It's dwarf season. There's a reason I'm fat right now. It's bulk. I'm dwarf maxing.
All right, and with that, we'll leave you. We'll see you next time.
Wow! Yeah!